The courtroom had witnessed its fair share of shouting, insults, and theatrics over the years, but never this. Never a flying chair. The moment it left Karen Delaney's hands, time fractured. The metal scraped against the floor, lifted with a screech, and spun toward the bench with the momentum of pure rage. For one suspended heartbeat, nobody moved. The cameras caught it. The audience gasped. The bailiff froze mid-step. And then, impact. The chair struck the wood panel just inches from Judge Judy Hub's nameplate. The crack echoed like a thunderclap. Judy didn't flinch. Not a blink, not a twitch. She simply lowered her pen, folded her hands, and stared at the woman standing before her. The woman who, in 30 seconds, would beg to rewind her life. Karen Delaney, 42 years old, former spa chain owner, self-proclaimed influencer, and master of self-promotion, had just made the worst mistake of her life. The case had started as a typical small claims dispute, one of thousands Judy had presided over. Karen was suing her ex-employee Lydia Crane for emotional sabotage and defamation. But from the moment Karen strutted into the courtroom, it was clear this wasn't about money. It was about image. She wanted a stage. Unfortunately for her, Judy's courtroom was no runway. It was a mirror. And mirrors are cruel to liars. She entered that morning wearing a cream blazer sharp enough to cut glass, heels that clicked like punctuation, and a smirk that could curdle milk. "I'm not nervous," she told the producer in the hallway. "I'm a natural in front of cameras." She had rehearsed her tone, her hand gestures, even her sighs. To her, this wasn't a trial. It was content. But Judy had already read the file, and the numbers didn't lie. Karen's so-called spa franchise had collapsed months ago, leaving unpaid employees and lawsuits in its wake. Lydia Crane, the defendant, was one of them. A single mother who'd worked 60-hour weeks and was promised bonuses that never arrived. Instead, she received silence, then termination, and finally, public humiliation when Karen posted about her online, calling her lazy, ungrateful, and a threat to female entrepreneurship. The internet ate it up. Until Lydia fought back. Now seated across the courtroom, Lydia wore a modest navy blouse and an expression carved from quiet endurance. She didn't fidget, didn't glare. She simply waited, and that composure was gasoline on Karen's fire. "Good afternoon, Miss Delaney," Judy said at the start, her tone neutral but laced with that unmistakable edge. "I understand you're suing Miss Crane for emotional distress." Karen smiled broadly. "Yes, Your Honor. She's been spreading lies about me on social media. She's trying to destroy my reputation." Judy glanced at her notes. "The same reputation you damaged yourself by not paying her for 6 weeks." Karen blinked. "Excuse me?" "According to her claim," Judy continued, "you owed her over $4,000 in unpaid wages. Is that true?" Karen gave a small laugh. "That's an exaggeration. I had cash flow issues, but she was compensated in other ways." "Other ways?" Judy repeated, her voice lowering slightly. "What other ways?" Karen shrugged. "Exposure, experience, networking. I have over 80,000 followers. Most people would kill for that opportunity." Judy's pen stopped mid-note. "So you're saying she should be grateful for not being paid?" Karen smiled again, that practiced influencer grin. "I'm saying not everything valuable comes with a paycheck." The room went still. Even the audience, usually quick to chuckle, stayed silent. Judy's eyes narrowed just a fraction. "Miss Delaney, this is a courtroom, not your podcast. I suggest you choose your next words carefully." Lydia spoke softly from the defendant's table. "I just wanted what I earned, Your Honor. I never wanted this to go public. She left me messages, awful ones. I brought copies." Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please. Those were jokes. Anyone with a sense of humor would know that." Judy looked up slowly. "Do I look like someone with a sense of humor about wage theft?" Karen's smirk faltered. The audience let out a low murmur. Judy continued. "You fired her without pay, mocked her online, and now you're suing her for emotional distress. You're lucky she didn't file for damages herself." Karen's voice rose defensively. "You don't understand what it's like to run a business. People take advantage of you all the time. I was protecting myself." "By stealing her paycheck?" Judy asked. Karen stood abruptly, palms slamming onto the table. "I didn't steal anything," she shouted. "This whole thing is ridiculous. You're making me look like the villain here." Judy's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't need to make you look like anything, Miss Delaney. You're doing that quite well yourself." The line landed like a gavel strike. Karen's nostrils flared. She looked around, at the audience, at the cameras, at Lydia's calm face, and something inside her cracked. All the frustration, the embarrassment, the loss of control she'd bottled up came boiling out. "You're just jealous," she spat suddenly. "All of you. You think because you sit behind that bench, you're better than me. But you're not." The bailiff took one step forward. Judy raised a single hand to stop him. Her eyes never left Karen. "Miss Delaney," she said quietly. "Sit down." Karen didn't move. "You don't tell me what to do," she screamed. "I'm done being disrespected." She grabbed the nearest object, her chair, and hurled it with all her strength. It flew for less than a second, but felt like forever. The chair struck the bench and toppled sideways, clattering onto the floor. The silence that followed was suffocating. Judy exhaled once, slow and deliberate. "Bailiff," she said. "Remove the plaintiff from my courtroom." Karen froze. "No, wait," she stammered, her confidence evaporating. "I didn't mean—" Judy's tone sliced through her plea. "You just assaulted a judge. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." The bailiff approached, hand on her arm. Karen tried to pull back, but there was nowhere to go. The audience watched in horrified awe. For the first time, Karen wasn't performing. She was panicking. "And Judge Judy," she didn't raise her voice once. She simply picked up her pen again and said, "Record the time. 30 seconds after impact." That's when panic finally set in. The next morning, the world woke up to 1,000 headlines. Karen throws chair at Judge Judy. The clip flooded every feed within hours. Millions watched it on loop. That single second of rage, the crash, the calm that followed. Talk shows replayed it. Commentators analyzed Judy's unflinching stare, as if decoding divine wrath. But inside the courthouse, away from the hashtags, there was still a case to resolve, and Tatum and Judge Judy intended to finish it. Karen Delaney entered the courtroom again, this time without her usual armor. Gone were the cream blazer and the high heels. In their place, a wrinkled navy suit borrowed from the county's supply rack. Her hair was unstyled, her confidence cracked. Yet even in defeat, she couldn't resist the performance. "I didn't mean to throw it at you," she said the moment she sat down. "It just slipped." Judy raised an eyebrow. "Chairs don't usually slip at that speed." Her voice was steady, but the chill in it could have frozen glass. "You're here to finish your case, Miss Delaney, not to rewrite physics." The courtroom was quieter than usual. No audience laughter, no applause. Even the bailiff's presence felt heavier, as if the air itself understood this was no longer a show. Lydia Crane, seated once again across from Karen, looked both nervous and resolute. The events of the previous day had shaken her too. Not because of fear, but because she'd seen what unchecked pride could do to a person. "Miss Delaney," Judy began, flipping through the file. "You accused Miss Crane of defamation and emotional distress, yet evidence shows you initiated a social media campaign mocking her. Do you wish to amend your claim?" Karen hesitated. "No, Your Honor, I was provoked. She called me a fraud." "She called you that after you refused to pay her, correct?" Karen fidgeted. "That's not the point. She embarrassed me publicly." Judy's tone was razor-sharp. "You embarrassed yourself when you made promises you didn't keep. Miss Crane wasn't your problem. Accountability was." A low murmur rippled through the spectators. Karen's jaw tightened. "You don't know what it's like," she snapped. "To work hard, to be successful, and then to have people try to tear you down because they're jealous." Lydia spoke softly, almost apologetically. "I wasn't jealous, Your Honor. I was just tired of working for free." Judy turned to Karen. "There's a difference between envy and exhaustion. Learn it." Karen's lips trembled, but she forced a smile, the kind that belonged on camera, not in court. "I built something from nothing. I gave people jobs. Hand this," she gestured toward Lydia. "This woman destroyed that." "You destroyed it yourself," Judy said calmly. "You don't build something real by standing on other people's backs. You build it by showing up, even when no one's clapping." For a moment, even Karen's breathing seemed to stop. She opened her mouth, closed it again, and looked away. Judy watched her carefully, her tone now quieter, almost reflective. "Tell me, Miss Delaney, when was the last time you said thank you to the people who worked for you?" Karen blinked, caught off guard. I don't know. Probably often." "Probably," Judy repeated. "That word tells me everything I need to know." She leaned back slightly. "Miss Crane, how many employees did Miss Delaney have?" 6, Lydia replied. 5 left without pay." Karen's head snapped up. "That's not true." Judy turned toward her. "Do you have documentation proving otherwise?" Karen hesitated. "Not right now." "Then it's true enough for this court." Karen slammed her palm on the table. "This isn't fair!" Judy's tone stayed steady, infuriatingly calm. "Fairness is what's left after you strip away excuses. What you want is indulgence." The audience held its breath. It was that same quiet tension from the day before, the kind that usually comes right before a storm. But Judy wasn't here to explode. She was here to teach. "Miss Delaney," she said softly, "you're not on trial for throwing a chair anymore. You're on trial for what made you throw it." Karen's shoulders stiffened. "You think I'm some kind of monster?" "No," Judy replied. I think you're a warning. Those words landed heavier than any gavel. Karen's facade cracked for a second, her face flickering between anger and confusion. A warning? Yes, Judy said. A warning about what happens when ego becomes louder than reason. When a person starts mistaking attention for respect. I've seen it before. It never ends quietly. Karen's throat tightened. I just wanted to be seen. And now you are, Judy replied. By millions. Was it worth it? The silence that followed was suffocating. The bailiff shifted slightly. Lydia looked down. Karen couldn't answer. Judy finally broke the tension with a single line. Let's proceed. She tapped her pen twice, the sound echoing through the still air. Miss Crane, please present your evidence. Lydia handed over a neat folder. Payslips, text messages, timestamps, screenshots. Judy examined them with surgical precision. Clear documentation, she murmured. Honest, straightforward, simple. Then she turned back to Karen. You see, Miss Delaney, the truth doesn't need filters or hashtags. It speaks for itself. Karen swallowed hard. Her reflection stared back from the glossy table surface, tired, exposed, small. For the first time, she saw herself not as the hero of her story, but as the author of her own downfall, and Judge Judy, calm as ever, simply said, Let's see if you can learn something before the next chair flies. When the third day of proceedings began, the energy in the courtroom was almost unbearable. Everyone knew what had already happened. The chair throw, the viral outrage, the disgrace. But this time, the cameras were allowed to keep rolling for one reason. Judge Judy wanted the world to see what happens when truth is rebuilt from rubble. The producers didn't argue. Nobody ever did when she gave an order like that. Karen Delaney walked in late. Her expression was that of a woman trying to pretend the whole world wasn't pointing and laughing. She sat down slowly, avoiding eye contact with Lydia, who watched her with quiet empathy instead of triumph. It almost made Karen angry again, that Lydia could still look calm, still look decent. Judy noticed it instantly. She always did. Miss Delaney, Judy began, tone firm but controlled. Yesterday you said you were provoked into your behavior. Would you like to clarify what exactly provoked you to throw a chair at a sitting judge? Karen looked up, her voice brittle. I was frustrated, Your Honor. I felt disrespected. Everyone was treating me like a villain when I was the one being lied about. Judy's eyes narrowed. You think being questioned is disrespect? Then you've never met accountability. Karen flinched. She tried to recover with a sigh. I just lost my temper. I'm not proud of it. You're not ashamed of it either, Judy countered sharply. That's the difference. The bailiff's eyes flicked between them. A familiar dance he'd seen 100 times. But even he could feel this one was different. There was no performance left in Judy's tone. She was done hosting a show. This was a reckoning. Judy turned to Lydia. Miss Crane, please tell the court what happened after you were terminated. Lydia hesitated, then said softly, I tried to find another job, but she kept posting about me online. She said I stole from her, that I was unstable. Some of her followers sent me threats. I had to delete everything. I almost lost custody of my daughter because of the stress. Karen rolled her eyes. Oh, please, you're exaggerating. Judy slammed her pen down hard enough to echo. Miss Delaney, you will not interrupt her again. One more word and you'll spend tonight in a holding cell. Karen froze. The confidence she once wore like armor was cracking. She nodded quickly, her throat tight. Go on, Judy said, her tone softening toward Lydia. I just wanted peace, Lydia whispered. I didn't even plan to come here until I got a letter from her lawyer, threatening to sue me for defamation. Judy turned to Karen again. You sued her first, then defamed her publicly, and then assaulted the bench. That's 3 acts of self-sabotage in one season. Impressive consistency. The audience let out a nervous chuckle. Karen's face burned red. You're humiliating me, she said quietly. No, Judy replied, I'm exposing you, and there's a difference. Humiliation happens when people laugh at lies. Exposure happens when the truth finally catches up. Karen's lips trembled. You don't understand what it's like to fail in front of everyone. Judy leaned forward slightly, her gaze piercing. You think you're the first person to fail, Miss Delaney? Failure is part of life. What defines you is what you do after. You chose denial, deceit, and destruction. Failure didn't make you this way. Arrogance did. For the first time, Karen had no reply. Her fingers trembled on the table. The air in the room felt heavier than it had since the day of the outburst. Then Judy did something unexpected. She opened a small folder from her left side, revealing printed screenshots. These are your social media posts, Miss Delaney. The ones where you mocked this court, accused Miss Crane of theft, and called me, let's see, a relic living off past fame. She held up the printout. You posted this the night before your hearing. Am I reading that correctly? Karen's voice cracked. It was a mistake. I didn't think it mattered. Everything matters when it's public, Judy said. You built a life around pretending perception equals truth. You turned deceit into a brand. But perception doesn't pay debts, Miss Delaney. Character does. The room was dead quiet. Even the hum of the cameras seemed to fade. Karen's mask shattered completely. The tears came fast, messy, unfiltered. I just wanted to be respected, she said. People only listen when you're successful. I thought if I acted confident enough, they'd believe me. And did they? Judy asked, her voice almost tender. Karen shook her head. Not anymore, Judy sat back. Good. Maybe now you can start being someone worth believing. Lydia watched silently, her empathy winning over anger. The woman who'd once destroyed her reputation now looked like a child who'd lost her way. Judy noticed that too. Miss Crane, she said softly, if you have anything else you wish to say, now is your time. Lydia's voice wavered. I forgive her, the courtroom gasped. Even Judy raised an eyebrow. You forgive her? After everything? Yes, Lydia said, because holding hate is heavy, and she's already carrying enough. For a moment the silence was pure. Karen looked up, eyes wet, and whispered, Why? Lydia just said, Because you need it more than I do. Judge Judy leaned back slowly, tapping her pen twice. That, she said, is what dignity looks like. She paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. Court will resume tomorrow for sentencing. Miss Delaney, I suggest you use the next 24 hours to decide whether you want to keep defending yourself or start redeeming yourself. Karen nodded weakly, whispering, Yes, Your Honor. As the gavel fell, the cameras zoomed out. The woman who once thought she could control the narrative now sat motionless, knowing she couldn't even control her own story. And for the first time since the viral moment, the audience didn't cheer. They simply watched in silence, because justice had shifted from entertainment to enlightenment. By sunrise the next morning, the chair incident had already transformed into an unstoppable digital wildfire. It was everywhere: television, social media, podcasts, late-night monologues. Commentators called it the day arrogance took flight. Memes flooded the internet. Judy's calm face frozen mid-stare with captions like, Gravity always wins and never throw shade or chairs at justice. Within 24 hours, the clip had surpassed 50 million views. But what caught people's attention wasn't just the outburst. It was Judy's silence, that terrifying, unshakable calm in the face of chaos. That's what people couldn't stop replaying. While the world laughed, Judge Judy remained unmoved. Her chambers were as still as ever, sunlight spilling across stacks of case files. Her producer entered quietly, tablet in hand. It's everywhere, Judge, every network, every feed. They're calling it the most viral courtroom moment of the decade. Judy didn't look up. I'm not in the business of going viral. I'm in the business of teaching lessons. The producer hesitated. Do you want us to cut that footage out of the final episode? No, Judy said firmly. Leave it in. People need to see what happens when you mistake the internet for immunity. Across town, Karen Delaney's life was unraveling faster than she could refresh her feed. Her phone buzzed with notifications she no longer had the courage to open. Brand sponsors withdrew deals. Her business partner announced their resignation via public statement. Her social media accounts, once polished temples of vanity, turned into war zones of mockery. She'd wanted attention. Now she had it in abundance, and it was eating her alive. She spent that night scrolling through headlines she couldn't bear to read. Influencer turns violent in Judge Judy courtroom. Karen versus the gavel. 30 seconds of madness that ended a career. Every article dissected her face frame by frame, her raised arm, the wild eyes, the moment when anger overtook logic. She replayed it too, unable to look away from her own ruin. It doesn't even look like me, she whispered to herself. But it was her, the unfiltered version. Meanwhile, Lydia Crane returned to work quietly at a local salon. No interviews, no cameras. When a journalist approached her outside the shop, she simply said, I just wanted to be paid for my work. The simplicity of that statement went viral too, becoming a quote plastered beneath photos of Judge Judy with her gavel raised. It struck a chord. The public had seen arrogance punished and humility honored, and they couldn't get enough of it. Judy, in her chambers, watched the ripple effect unfold with a practiced detachment. To her, every headline was proof of the same truth she'd spent decades preaching. Justice teaches best when it's unscripted. When a reporter called to request an exclusive interview, she replied with a single line. The footage said everything. But the storm outside her courtroom doors was only growing. Talk shows debated Karen's sentence before it was even announced. Commentators argued whether Judy had been too harsh or too restrained. Hashtags split into moral camps. Justice served versus ban too far too fast. But Judy refused to engage. When her assistant asked why she didn't issue a statement, Judy said, You don't explain the obvious. You let silence finish the conversation. For Karen, silence was unbearable. Every ping of her phone made her flinch. Old friends unfollowed her. Even her mother stopped answering calls. The internet had turned her into a villain, a symbol, a punchline. In desperation, she went live one night, eyes red, voice shaking. "I'm not a monster," she said into the camera. "I just lost control." But the comments scrolled too fast for her to keep up. Too late. You threw your chance. Control is what adults have. She ended the stream mid-sentence, the glow of the screen fading from her tear-streaked face. Lydia, however, was approached by producers from several talk shows offering her airtime. She declined them all. "It's over," she said simply. "I don't want to keep living in that moment." The contrast between her grace and Karen's desperation only made the story spread further. People began to admire Lydia as the quiet symbol of dignity the world needed. The woman who didn't gloat, didn't rage, didn't feed the fire. Hashtags like "Be Like Lydia" trended for days. Meanwhile, in private, Judy reflected on the case's strange cultural reach. She understood the internet's hunger, how quickly it could turn justice into spectacle. She had no interest in being part of that machine, but she did recognize one thing. This story had become more than entertainment. It was a mirror held up to modern arrogance. That evening, while reviewing paperwork, Judy murmured to herself, "Justice doesn't trend, but maybe it should remind." Her bailiff, passing by, raised an eyebrow. "Remind of what, Judge?" "That control is strength," she said, "and that chaos always ends the same way, begging for order." By the time the following day's hearing was announced, the courtroom filled again. This time, not with an audience eager for drama, but with people curious about redemption. Karen would return, stripped of glamour, stripped of defense, to face the same bench she'd once disrespected. And this time it wasn't the cameras that scared her. It was the calm woman sitting behind the bench who didn't need to raise her voice to change the world. Judge Judy flipped the page on the file and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow she learns what accountability sounds like when it's not televised." The morning of sentencing arrived without spectacle, no audience. Only the hum of a copier and shoe squeaks on tile. Karen entered smaller than her headlines, shoulders tucked, the last of her bravado traded for caution. 30 seconds of fury had redrafted her biography. Now the punctuation would be chosen for her. Judge Judy took the bench with economy, glanced over the file and lifted her eyes like a level coming true. "Miss Merritt," she said, using the name on the docket, not the one the internet had memed. "Yesterday was about stopping a spiral. Today is about setting a course." She summarized the findings like a surgeon reading a chart. Direct contempt for the throne chair and the defiance that followed. Omissions in financial disclosures. Retaliatory online harassment of the plaintiff. And a call to followers to flood court staff. Then came what no clip could compress. Impact statements. Erica, the woman Karen had rebranded as an obstacle, stood with notes that were not a performance but a ledger. Missed rent. A child learning worry. A job lost after threats. Her clerk's letter followed. Routine name on a form. Extraordinary torment after a tag turned her inbox feral. "I file calendars and pour coffee," it read. "I don't deserve to be hunted." The words landed heavier than any gavel. Sentencing wasn't thunder. It was math. 72 hours in county custody for direct contempt, Judy said. Restitution to Ms. Lane in full, plus interest and penalties. 200 hours of community service at the Small Business Fraud Prevention Clinic. Tasks will include intake, filing, and listening. She stressed the last word, listening, as if it were a lost language. "You will also publish a correction and apology that names what you did, and to whom." No flair. Just law shaped into steps. Karen's voice finally arrived, thinned by a night with no mirrors. "Your Honor." "Did I ruin my life over 30 seconds? Judy didn't blink. "No, you revealed it. Those 30 seconds show what your habits had been building. You are not a headline, Miss Merritt. You are a choice repeated. Change the choice." She turned to Erica. "Ms. Lane, the clinic invites you to advise on a wage theft checklist. You don't owe this, but your experience is expertise." A nod. Outside, the algorithm kept chewing. Inside, consequence did its work. Forms were signed. A bailiff approached with gentleness. Karen stood, a flicker of the first version of herself surfacing, the one from before followers and filters. She looked toward Erica. "I'm sorry," she said, and there was no audience left to impress. Erica met her halfway with the simplest reply possible. Make it mean something. The 72 hours were not cinematic. Time broke into units measured by keys and carts. Karen learned a new rhythm. Stand, step, wait. Sit, think, listen. She met women who had never thrown chairs, but had thrown chances away in daily increments. No one asked for her story. They